up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. This is your first time tuning in. Welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I do say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Thursday, everybody. I got a very special guest for you guys here today. I truly credit a lot of what I know about this industry to this man. He was my first boss in the industry. The system that I operated in early on, what I learned early on, I still apply to this day. And those fundamentals to me are everything. And we're just going to chop it up about what's going on out there. And, some from kind of across the board at the desk level, all the way up to Capitol Hill and everything. So I would like to welcome Mr. Greg Sanders back on the show. It's been a while, Greg, but Greg, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Hey, good seeing you, Chris.
Now, man, it's like I was telling you, I should have just hit go live when you and I were just, talking before the show, because it's like, I think at times it's so easy to overcomplicate what we're trying to do out there. And, we point to so many things that are going on, whether it's at Capitol Hill, state level, stuff like that. And, I think at the end of the day, we got to understand, like, we got to find a way to make things work no matter what. Like, we're not the first generation of people in transportation that has dealt with stuff before. It looks a little bit different now, but we're not the first, and we're not going to be the last.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, no doubt. It's an industry that keeps on evolving, but it's such a staple in our business. So some of the things that we were doing 30, 35 years ago are the exact same we're doing today to build a strong business. We just have a little better technology behind us to help us execute. So, I'm ready to go, man. I've had 2 cups of coffee. I just threw in my Zen 6. So I'm ready to go.
You're ready to rock. I love it.
I'm ready to rock.
So let's start out. You brought that up about some of the things over the last 30, 35 years. Like, what are the realities of running a brokerage out there? Because I think a lot of people get into the space and, obviously they look at the size of the industry and they're like, oh, we're just going to print money and everything else. And they think that there isn't any risk involved from the brokerage side of things.
Yeah. You're always going to deal with risk. If there wasn't risk, then there wouldn't be opportunities to make profit. So, I don't want to get off on a tangent here, but I'm started reading this great book. I'm a third of the way through it, right? It's called The Revolution, The Birth of the Greatest Nation. And it's by a guy named Eric Metaxas. It's 2026, so it's a new book. And it just kind of has me kind of reinvigorated around, I guess, courage is the one word. There were some great leaders back in that revolutionary time that, they were dealing with battles far greater than the battles we deal with. And it took courage to just keep fighting the fight. And so it's kind of got me reinvigorated. I really recommend that read. It's not a political read at all. It's really just true historical facts of what took place and some great anecdotal stories of some of the great leaders and some of the things that took place to kind of move our nation forward towards true freedom and liberty. And it's pretty cool. And I look at our business the exact same way. You just got to keep fighting the fight. You're always going to have adversaries against you, working against you. And you got to make sure you form a good coalition to fight those battles. But at the end of the day, it just comes down to those raw fundamentals. And I think when you first start in the business, it's about execution, right? It's what you learn at Schneider and OHL. It's just the pure execution of freight and learning how to do it right and learning how to be a good communicator, both with your carriers and with your customer base. But I think as you tend to grow up in the business and you take on more leadership roles, and then specifically for me, when I started this business back in 6-7 years ago, there are 2 other aspects that I realize that are so important to running this business. So you got to move freight. There's no doubt that's the heart and soul, because you can't do any of the other stuff if you're not moving freight. But the other two things are, moving information is so important. And you really do got to keep up with technology. You have to be more efficient on how you accept information from carriers and customers. And you have to be extremely proficient at getting information out to your customers and your carriers, not just receiving information. So having that technology background, and really, it's become, we used to outsource all our IT. I decided to bring it all in-house again, because with AI, I want to make sure I have a quarterback that's overseeing some of the applications that we're choosing. And quite frankly, a lot of them you can build yourselves to help your business become more efficient. And the final thing is the movement of money. Man, so many people misunderstand this when they get into the business. They don't understand the actual cash flow responsibilities that you have in the brokerage field. And if you want to do it without factoring and those kind of things, you have to be really, really good at managing money. And you have to have a great relationship with your bank. You have to have great relationship with technology providers that help you move that money quicker. But you got to keep an eye on the till at all times. And the only recommendation I would give to anybody that's starting out a broker is, don't just think about the movement of freight. Think about the movement of information, the movement of money, because it's really just as important, no doubt.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, because it's like, I look at like the movement of information. Like I often say, like, we're a communications company that just happens to move freight, because like we are taking that and we are passing all of that around. And, because it's like, I to me, brokerage it's very simple, right? Like I think technology in today's environment is really great, but I think that there's some technology out there now that are creating problems that didn't exist just so they can sell you the solution. Yeah. And it's like, I look at a lot, and again, I don't work with every single shipper in North America. I know everybody has different requirements out there, but I have yet to meet a prospect who has even asked about my tech stack. They are still very much concerned about the fundamentals of things, because it's like we do probably 95% of our freight is in the open deck space. We go to a lot of government facilities. We go to a lot of job sites. We go to a lot of crane offloads. We got to do a lot of that stuff out there. Those all cost a lot of money if you cannot communicate properly. And if you send in the wrong equipment type and stuff like that. So it's like, I look at it where I like to simplify things. I like to make it down to, it's like very easily digestible bites, repeatable, scalable processes that I can go out there. We were talking before the show about like those subject matter experts, what makes the best sales rep and the best business out there. And I look at, with technology in today's environment, and you're talking about bringing your IT staff in-house, I think the next wave of opportunity in freight is going to be businesses built on those subject matter experts, because information is going to be so readily available out there that those run and gun days of just like, hey, we can do everything and anything out there are going to almost be irrelevant, because like there's going to be people who have so much information about so many intricate, silos inside of transportation, that you're going to have a very hard time cracking through any of that stuff out there. And then, to talk about building your own technology, it's like those days of like working with outside developers that are essentially built, on retainer, like what took them a year, you can get it done in 30 days internally now.
Yeah, no doubt. It's definitely an evolving space in that side. We try to look at our business, RDS Capacity Solutions, and I break our business down into 3 areas where we really want to just be absolute experts in and continue to build market share in those spaces. Like you, we're about 65% open deck, which is a higher end, higher touch, higher communication form of transportation, in my opinion. And it does require a high level of expertise. And if you don't offer that expertise, you're going to get killed financially through some of the penalties on the back end. The second thing we really focus in on is this team expedited, whether it's middle mile, long haul. It does require service requirements that that, big penalties if you don't get from point A to point B on time, and different types of communication with team drivers, those type of things. And it's higher end. Sometimes it's premium service. We haven't seen the premium prices in the last few years, but it's starting to come back a little bit because people appreciate a good team and what they can do. And so that's been a big part of our growth. And the third is just intermodal drayage, more so with the pier, doing port work. I think the domestic intermodal, we've been doing that since 1981, and it's, it can be complex, but we've already gained that expertise. But to really help your customers and get stickier with them, and getting involved in the international piece and helping them with their port drayage. And if you can handle one port in general, each port operates differently. So you've got to kind of develop the expertise through all the ports throughout North America. And I think, again, if you don't do it right, if you don't have experts running it, you can run into a lot of back end expenses that can kill you. And so our method is to kind of go slow to go fast, if you will, that we want to really hire the expertise and really, before we explode it, make sure we're doing things right. We have the right systems in place and the right people, more importantly. And so I'm really happy. We're going to crack 100 million this year after 6 years of being in business. And I will tell you, those last 3.5 years were kind of tough years, and it really, I think, separated the good businesses from the ones that were taking advantage of the COVID era where there was so much freight that you couldn't help but make money. And then when that dried up, I think you found out who the real businesses were. So I never like to break even, but we broke even the last couple of years, and it's frustrating. We didn't lose money. We broke even, but we kept the culture strong, no layoffs, none of that kind of stuff. Being privately held, you can make those kind of decisions. We're not owned by private equity or any of that kind of stuff. And that's why you can't, explode growth, because you got to watch the money and you got to watch a bunch of different things. But at the same time, you're building something that's strong, that built to last kind of mentality. We're not building this thing for an exit in 4 or 5 years. We're really thinking about how do we make this a company 25, 30 years from now? That RDS brand is still out in the marketplace. And, as I always tell my associates, the only exit I would like to make is at some point, age catches up with you, right? I'm 63 years old. You can only do it so long. But I'd love to see our employees own our company someday through some type of ESOP, and keep that brand alive and keep that built to last philosophy in everybody's head. And when you own it, you treat things differently than if you're just an employee. I can guarantee you.
I couldn't agree with that more. And we are talking about money earlier, moving money, the financial repercussions of stuff, and then I'm going to kind of tie into the current market right now. Invoices are up, rates are going up and everything, and that doesn't necessarily mean you make more money as a business. And the majority, I think it's like 70% of freight brokers that are out there are like $10 million or less, and the cost to operate is going up, right? Like I just had a buddy of mine on yesterday. He's also a fellow agent at SPI Logistics, but he owned his own brokerage and chose to bring it into an agent model because of the cost to operate. The risk and everything that was out there sometimes doesn't match up the reward. Do you think that is going to open up kind of like a wave of opportunity now for those smaller businesses who, they might not have the best buying power out there in the market, where it's like, hey, I'm just fictitious numbers, a $20 million operation, like you might want to explore an agent model because, one bad situation, and again, to tie in current events, like one bad lawsuit can bankrupt you very, very quick. And that's a lifetime of work gone essentially overnight.
Yeah, I see it as a huge opportunity. If you listen to Landstar's most recent earnings report, some of their commentary was around they're getting much more inquiries about folks wanting to become agents for Landstar. And of course, that's their model, and they've just done it for years. And I've got a lot of history with it because Landstar bought my dad's company back in 1994, and I was able to work for him for 3 years and really understand the importance of agents and how they treat their agents and so forth. And so it is a great model. I also see companies like ourselves. We're a mid-sized company, 100 million player. 100 million player puts you in the top 10% of the industry, right? Now, the top 1% are way out there, the big $1 billion players. But I don't think you have to be a $1 billion player to have relevance in the industry. Our next goal is the 250 mark, 250 million. And I really want to explore the agency route to get there. Now, I'll be different than a Landstar because we're not going to give up our business 100% to an agency model, but I do think you can run both. We run a good organically built $100 million company, but how do you get that next 100 million? And I do think there's going to be an opportunity for a select group of folks that buy into our philosophy, buy into our culture, that represent the brand the way we want it represented. And that's sometimes the danger of an agency model, is you have all these independent businesses out there that may not represent your brand the way you want it represented. So we would bring on an agent much like we would bring on a branch office, in that, boy, they got to fit all the bills of fitting our culture, ethical, just do things the right way, treat carriers like gold. And if we do those things, I think we've built up a strong back office that offers the right technology, the right insurance, and of course, the working capital to support, fast growth. So it allows some of these agents that maybe were stuck at 10 million, even 5 million, but now have a platform to really demonstrate their expertise. Yeah. And we talked about before, I believe in the field general, if you will. I don't believe in the building out, going hiring a bunch of sellers right out of school and giving them a script and having them make thousands of phone calls. And maybe that's good in some aspects of training, but I believe the best way to train someone up is they get into operations, they understand the flow of freight, they start realizing that they've got really good communication skills and they've got good leadership skills, and they make the right decisions. And then they become involved in account relationships. And then they become more of like I said, I call them a field general, ones that can not only develop the customer relationship, but can lead a carrier group that they work together. So we grew up in an environment, Chris, with we were blessed to be part of Turbo Logistics, which was part of OHL, which was started by the Siphon family. And he started that model, 30, 40 years ago. But it was all about creating these, kind of independent businesses within a business. And a field general is kind of leading different segments, whether it be, building products industry or, the retail industry or understanding international cargo like no one's business, and then building their base off of that. So you still, no matter what, all this technology, all this AI, you still have to have people that lead it. And I think we've built a great platform for people to do that off of.
Yeah. And, it's like, I look at it also, and, you're also heavily involved in the TIA. And I look at it now in today's environment, like because like I'm constantly assessing risk as I'm trying to build my business, right? Like, what is the biggest threat to my organization at all time? Is it new business development? Is it capital constraints? What does it look like? But, I look at with recently, I mean, obviously there's been a lot of high profile court cases that have been coming down out there. And, this last one that came about, without getting into any of the specifics, because like, no matter what any broker says out there, that could have been any one of us in that environment. Like, I don't care what anybody says. So it's like, I look at with, because like I have very much heavily stated this on the show in the past. we look to the FMCSA to set these guidelines and these standards out there about who can run down the freeway and who cannot, right? Who has operating authority, who doesn't. And if they've essentially, if they're going to wash their hands of it at some point and say, figure it out, like, we got to take it upon ourselves to set a select standards, right? Like we have to have standards to operate off of, because if they think it's the wild, wild west, just wait. It could get even worse out there, right? So it's like with, like, again, to kind of tie this in, the TIA does their annual fly-in event out there, and, they're working on some policies right now to kind of set the tone for a carrier selection standard, right? Like having a baseline out there for us to at least be able to operate off of, because I feel like right now as a broker, my opinion is a lot of us are going to be flying blind here, right? Because it doesn't matter if they pass all inspections now, apparently, right? Like if they pass inspections and they have a certain rating, that doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's why I love being involved with the TIA, and I've been I think a member since probably as early as 1993, I think it was. But it's been so important to our business, number one. But number two, you get to a point in your career where you care more about the industry than you do your individual business, because you've spent so much time in it. You just want to see things done right. And so the TIA has, part of our mission, the main part of our mission is advocacy. The other part is certainly education. We try to help some of the smaller players understand best practices to get them up and be successful as possible. But the real focus that I've been putting on is just the advocacy with lawmakers and with the agencies like the FMCSA to help them understand our business better, right? And I really think that we're really cracking the nut. For the first time, when you get a good leader in there on the FMCSA, and you get a guy like Derek Bars, he's a no-nonsense guy. Yeah. He's a common sense guy. It's not a political thing. It's just a common sense guy. And one of the things that we're, the first thing out there is this whole liability issue, broker liability. What are we responsible for? How do we think about carrier vetting? Well, in reality, if you were a good broker, you've probably had a good carrier vetting program in place, right? But these recent lawsuits demonstrate that even a good carrier vetting process opens up kind of a can of worms from a legal standpoint. So we're trying to rein that in a little bit with the FMCSA, and we're really asking two things. The first thing is just give us, like you said, some kind of baseline, all right? What is the baseline we should be looking for in order to make a carrier selection process? There's the obvious things like insurance and authority, but give us more. Give us some of the things that you look at as an agency, that if you're going to approve a carrier to operate an 80,000-pound missile going up and down the highway, what have you done as an agency to qualify them as a safe carrier out on the highway? So Daniel Hoff, who kind of runs our advocacy at the TIA, uses the example of a seatbelt, right? Seatbelts, you've got to have some kind of minimum standard out there that car manufacturers have to operate under. Now, they can do up and above that, to differentiate their product, but there is a minimum standard you have to meet in order to provide safety to passengers in a vehicle. And it's kind of the same way. We're really asking them to develop some kind of baseline that we can all operate off of. And it's not just liability. It's like, we really want to be better players. Who doesn't want to be safe? Who wants to be responsible for causing some accident, some fatality or life-changing medical condition to someone because you did not follow the right process, And so, and the other thing that we're asking the FMCSA is that they have some information that's not available to the public. So they have a list of carriers that they are tracking that they feel are unsafe. You ought to publish that list. You ought to make that list available to people so we can make more informed decisions. So those are two of the things that we're working with the agency. And I think we're making great progress simply because they've got the right leader in the right place at the right time. And the Trump administration is pushing certain things like English proficiency and non-domiciled and those kind of things. That's going to continue to take out the nefarious characters in this business and put better players out on the road. So although it may tighten up supply, I think we all welcome it because it's going to lead to better safety on the highways. The second thing we have to go after, besides this, whole liability issue, is fraud and dealing with fraud, right? Because it's not fraud of the past. This is organized crime, right? And these guys are good. They're good at what they do. They're smart. They have great technology, and they got a boatload of money because they don't pay taxes, right? Because they're crooks. And so they can reinvest a boatload of money back into technology and other things. And they're very sophisticated at what they do. And, and the government is really, the Congress has taken some action on that. There's a bill it just passed the House, and now it's going over to the Senate, but it's the Corca bill, and that's Combating Organized Retail Crime Act. And we're 100% behind that as an organization. And really what that does is allows certain agencies more resources to go after the nefarious characters, keeping better data on information regarding these thefts, that you can start piecing things together a little bit better and understanding what's going on. And then the second thing we're pushing, like on the Hill, when we go meet representatives from Congress, we're going to talk about our support of Corca. We're going to talk about our support of the Household Goods Consumer Protection Act. And it's not just that we're supporting them. We kind of help craft them, So Chris Burrows and Daniel Hoff, the work that they do, we're helping these folks craft the right language. And what I like about the Household Goods Protection Act is it really gives the FMCSA a lot more authority on issuing fines to carriers that are doing nefarious things out there.
Yes.
So, every time you're doing something wrong, boom, you get a $10,000 fine, and you're doing something wrong 3 times a day. That money is going to add up. And if we can give the FMCSA the teeth to enforce it, it's really going to benefit our industry. So really looking forward to that.
No, I look at it where it's like the Motor Carriers Safety Standard Act, right? And getting that out there. And I understand how the government works, you guys. I understand that the power's at the state level and stuff like this. But I also look at that as soon as you cross state lines, interstate commerce, that's a federal oversight at that point, right? And I look at where it's like, you look at these high risk carriers. We should be utilizing all of this stuff to crack it, because I think, and I've stated this numerous times on the show, I do not think this is regular crime. I think this is state-sponsored terrorism at its highest level, because there is very much pockets in countries across the world who are trying to destroy our supply chain. And again, this is an apolitical statement, but if you have open borders and there's no fear of repercussions and people can flood in, and then they do not have any standards on how to get a CDL, and then they're driving trucks across the country, like, you guys, it's very much common sense that it's been the Wild West out there. And then on top of it, when they're arrested and they're bought and they have a slap on the wrist, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to go right back to it, you guys. It's an open door. And I said this on the show the other day. I love the fact that ICE and everybody is at the scales that are out there, because again, we have to put deterrence in there. We also have to enforce the laws that are in place, you guys. Like, nothing that we're talking about right now just came about in the last 2 years.
Right.
Like, this stuff has been laws on the books for decades. We need to enforce these laws. And, maybe I'm just old school in the fact that I think that if you want people to stop breaking the law, you have to, enforce the law and throw the book at them, and then make them question, like, is it worth 40 years in prison to steal a $20,000 truck?
Exactly.
I think that's what it has to get to. And then again, it's like, if you brought up your history book earlier, and I'm going to buy that book, by the way, because I love history. But if you look at any historical event, what was the first thing they did to destroy a society? They cut the supply chain off. What do you think is happening right now? If you look at this, this is actual terrorism that is happening inside of our country. And because our agencies like the FMCSA can't do their job, we are openly allowing enemies to destroy us internally. And again, if you ever read a history book, what has everybody said? America will never be overtaken in combat. The only way to beat America is to topple it from within. Congratulations, you're allowing it to happen by allowing this stuff to go on.
Exactly. And that's why, again, I think we have the right leader in the right place at the right time with Derek Bars. And, you know, his pitch to us was, well, help us fight the battle with Congress. You know, and so that's part of our message when we go visit the individual representatives on the Hill is, hey, you guys need to support the FMCSA in greater funding than you do today. And there's probably other agencies that are getting way more funding for things that are just, you know, probably a tenth of the importance of what this, you know, the supply chain is critical to North America and our survival, right? So put the resources there. And that's going to be part of our pitch, you know. Look at those government agencies that are really doing nothing, right? And divert some of those funds over to something that's really vitally important to our country. And we're gonna give that pitch again on that fly-in. And I really encourage, you know, our members, sometimes they think, well, we're small, we're not gonna have any impact. I will tell you, make the trip to DC at least once, just once, just even for a historical fact of understanding how rules, regulations, laws are created in our country. There's a ton of politics that go on. And yes, you got to keep chopping wood. But the day you stop chopping wood is the day you've given up on fighting in this battle. And that's why the more people we have coming to the Hill, the more they take you serious and the more you're going to learn how this country really works. And I hope everybody gets that fire in their belly that they want to be part of the fight. You know, they want to be part of the fight, and not just to fight for fight's sake, but fight to make things better. You know, that's the important thing, is that we're really talking common sense issue here. This is not a controversial topic. This is really, you know, who wants to, you know, we're all ride our cars on the highways every day. We want to be on a safe highway. I want my family, I want my wife, my kids to be in a safe environment as they're traveling across the roadways. And I think we all want that, right? We all want that. So besides the nefarious characters, right? Organized crime could give a crap about safety. That's not the issue for them. It's how do we make illegal money? And it's essentially what they're doing. So that fly-in, by the way, just September 14th through the 16th, get on the TIA website, and I encourage you to sign up. I don't care whether you're a TIA member or not. It doesn't matter. Work on becoming part of our industry and help fight the fight.
No, I love it. Greg, thank you so much for your time. We could easily go for another hour on this stuff. I know you got a day job. You got to get back to any of that stuff out there. But hey, how does anybody reach out to you guys to find out more? Is best way to connect with you on LinkedIn? What does that look like?
Yeah, I would say right now, best way probably connecting with me on LinkedIn. Drop me a quick note, and I'll make sure that I can follow up with you. Especially if you're a potential agent. I'd love to have a discussion with you. We got a great program, great back office, and I think we really can help your business. But I appreciate everything you do for our industry, Chris. I really do. You've got a great story yourself, my friend. And next time I'd like to hear more about your story too, and start promoting that, because what you're doing is the best of both, right? You're building your own business through the fundamentals you've learned, but you're also a good communicator to our industry and helping educate folks on what's right, what's wrong. So
I appreciate that, Greg. And we'll do that next time. I'll have you interview me. Well, that's how.
Let's do it. Let's do it. That sounds great.
Perfect. Well, hey, that's going to be it for today, ladies and gentlemen. If you guys can't find Greg out there, hit me up. I can gladly put you guys in contact with him. As always, if you got value in what you heard and you're not subscribed, subscribe to the show, you guys. And if you're feeling ambitious, rank it on iTunes and Spotify, because if you see value, your network's going to see it as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And we'll be talking to you soon.
Came back with a bang. Window down, yelling out money, anything. Hey, ooh, got the foot on the gas. Pedal to the metal when I'm getting to the bag.